Welcome to Mastery Fractional CFO's Punchy podcast, short, impactful podcasts where we speak with business leaders from all walks of life about business. We also give them the opportunity to ask me, a fractional CFO, any question related to the financial success of their business. Today I've got with me John McClymont. John is the principal of operational innovations. John, tell us about who you are and what you do. Tell us about your company.
Well, so my company is me, and it's benefiting from the 20 years I've spent in operations and logistics and making things better. I've run and been responsible for many national large-scale projects, a lot of continuous improvement initiatives. And the simplest way is that I've always been tasked with how do you do more with less, and how do you actually create operations that add value to your customers so that you can actually get the biggest ROI and that you're as sticky as possible with what you're doing. A lot of people don't necessarily always appreciate the challenges of the physical world, but a lot of what most people do is a grind, and those small details really matter. So I help people fix those things so that they get the most out of all of the effort that they're putting into whatever it is they're doing.
Okay. And I know your background somewhat because years ago when we were both in the corporate worlds, we worked. Your company was the client of my company, and we worked together on a large deal that was beneficial for both of our organizations. So I know a bit about your background. But for somebody who doesn't know you and what you do, tell us a bit about your background and how you got into this business and some of the background experience that you've got that can help benefit other companies that could potentially use your services.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, very truthfully, I fell into the logistics, supply chain, and operations world. It wasn't something that I intentionally went into, but that's also a pretty common story for a lot of us is that, we found ourselves there. I started as a supervisor, day-to-day operations in the food industry. Did that for about 5 years, was promoted to a provincial manager where I took on more project responsibility and large scale improvements. And about 5 years after that, got into a national director role where I continued that kind of responsibility, just a lot more broadened out, doing everything from managing third-party relationships, which is, where you and I met, also having unionized employees and company assets. So I was really given the opportunity to kind of grow up right from the start and do it all. The interesting thing I think with my background is that because I didn't come from that kind of space, I didn't come from the floor and I didn't go to school specifically for that. I did a lot of my learning in the real world with the experience. So I ended up becoming very data savvy, data aware, and how do understanding how you take systems and how you take information and tie it to the things that people are physically doing in the real world, like on the floor or, out on the road or whatever it could be, and use that to drive a lot of innovation, creativity, better efficiency, just because of the fact that I think you can appreciate from our history as well that the logistics space or the operation space has a tendency to become very, this is how we've always done it, or this is how we do our process, and innovation or creativity sometimes can get cut off much more quickly than it should compared to other industries.
I think a lot of that, and you're right, and I think a lot of the reason for that is that people don't appreciate how much of a financial result can be intentionally created by focus on the operational efficiency. And so if you're more efficient on the operational side, it can have a dramatic impact on your finances and make them a lot better. And so you focus on that kind of an improvement process. You've got the experience, you've got the capabilities. Can you tell us a little bit about what that might look like for a company, maybe a small to mid-sized company that has an operation, they're successful, but they want to be more successful? How can you help a company like that?
So, one of the more popular or sort of mainstream things that I do is helping people when it comes to improvements, right? I think that, a lot of people will feel that they have some opportunity, that something isn't working as well as it should, or that they want it to work better, but then they can get stuck with the how. So, I help a lot of people understand, well, what are you doing today? How are you doing it? And, what are all of the pieces to it? Because very often people that are in that world don't realize what they skip over or what they don't see as an important piece, or they just think is part of the whole and they don't actually pay attention to each one. So I help really understand, what is it, everything that you have, what are you doing? How are you doing it? And then we understand that current state, because until you really understand how you're working today, any type of change just becomes like guesswork. Like if I'm not measuring it and I don't know how much I've changed, it's like I might feel something is better, but how much better? Establish that baseline, work with change, and then measure that. and really help understand what did playing with that lever or what did changing that part of the process do to your overall flow and your overall performance.
Okay, yeah, I like that. Now, help us understand. Maybe walk us through an example, or just give us a hypothetical example. In the beginning, you've got your current situation, and you take a look at that, or you'll come into an organization and help them understand what their baselines are if they don't already know, and what
Mhm.
things they might want to look at improving. So, where do you start with that? I mean, you mentioned data. That's part of it. Tell us about the process that you go through.
Well, depending on the size of the organization or what it is that they're looking at, I mean, you end up with essentially like conversations. And my preference anyway is to try to talk to as many people as possible that are involved in the particular process, flow, or area of change that's going to get the focus. Because what you end up finding is that the person on the floor is going to have a very different perspective about what's working and what's not working than the CEO or than the director or even sometimes the manager. And it's not to say that one person is right and the other person is wrong per se, but really understanding the breadth of their perception and their experience is beneficial to help understand, well, it's like these people brought up these issues. And from a more strategic or maybe higher level position, you're bringing up these issues. How do you connect? Are they connected? And are you actually saying the same thing? Because very often people think that something is the problem when it may be more of a symptom than actually the root of what is contributing to either the failure or what the perceived opportunity is. So start with talking. Then you map out the process to its constituent parts and really make it flow, which is always interesting because you'll find out that people usually are like, oh, I forgot that. And oh, yeah, we do this. And they never bring that up. And then once you have the process mapped out, what are those essentially like pain points or those bottlenecks, or where's the area that you might need more capacity or a new capability, maybe some new technology, whatever it could be, to help unlock the levers so that you can make adjustments and that you could actually then see what happens. So I take it very much of a like a test and learn, a try and learn type approach. Because I think if you spend too much time trying to map out everything perfectly in a report, you're probably not going to get a lot done, or at least not very quickly.
Okay. So if somebody is watching this and they're interested in how you might be able to help their company and they're trying to figure out, well, I don't know if that would work for us. Can you give us an example of some process improvements? Again, hypothetical, real world, it doesn't really matter, but what somebody might expect from step one. You look at the baselines, you're speaking to people, you're trying to identify what's going on. There's business objectives, yes, but they might not tie down all the way to the people on the floor with personal objectives. How can somebody go from current state to where they might end up if they go through a kind of a process like this with somebody like yourself?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I like to try to frame it then for people to understand and think about their operation kind of like a machine. So it's like, how do we determine your capacity? So what is your current capacity? And that's kind of, well, how many employees do I have? What assets or other resources do I have? What machinery? What plant? Whatever you might be doing. What is
Mhm.
my capacity? And then do I actually feel that that's the right capacity for the amount of people, the amount of equipment, or whatever? So something super simple to tie that in, even something that most people may not think about. Okay, well, if I'm an HVAC repair service, let's say, for example, very operational, out over the road, you actually lose a lot of control because they're not within your four walls like you might be in a manufacturing site. But it's like, well, what type of jobs are coming in? What's the type of standard for that job? Are all of your crews performing to that standard? Do you have people that are doing better? Do you have people that are doing worse? Why? And how then do you use that to say, okay, well, if I have 10 crews, what is my capacity and how many jobs should I take per day? Because the best way that people can get the most out of their operation is by filling capacity. That's why, for example, even when you see Amazon delivering out on the street, they could spend a lot of time trying to be much more perfect. Like, do I take that right turn or that left turn or whatever? And they do that to a certain degree, but it's far less rewarding for them than actually being able to get 10 more stops on there, because it's like, now I have more in that neighborhood or whatever. Whenever you can get more capacity into the same amount of time, your profitability is going to skyrocket. When you don't have the opportunity to add more volume, more density, then for sure you try to trim the fat and you try to limit the excess in any other area that you can. But those are usually secondary in terms of opportunity and benefit and flow through versus being able to do more with the resources that you already have.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's about utilization and efficiency and all of these kinds of things, and it does make a giant difference. As a fractional CFO, that's one thing we're always working with our clients to do is to find the operational levers that can drive those financial results. And in my experience, a lot of companies just aren't doing it. They're doing it to a degree, but there's low hanging fruit. How would somebody know if they should reach out to you, John, and consult with you? Just talk to you maybe a little bit at the beginning to see if there's a good fit for them. What would some of the things in their organization be that you would suggest are signs that they should work with somebody like yourself, potentially at least, to have a
Yeah,
discussion?
yeah, for sure. So the first thing that I love to share with people is that if you have anything that's bugging you, reach out. If you feel that like, oh man, I hate that, this frustrates me. If you hear people kind of complaining, I don't want to say it in a negative sense, but if there's that sort of discomfort or irritation in your system, there's probably opportunity. If you can go speak to someone on the floor and you ask them why they're doing something, and they essentially been like, I don't know, this is how I've been trained, or this is how we've always done it, you probably have opportunity. If you felt that you've had opportunity in the past, right? You had ideas and you tried it and maybe it didn't work, reach out, because very often, timing is important with these types of things. Just because something didn't work maybe a year ago or 5 years ago does not mean that enough hasn't changed that it would work today. Technology, people, process, something in the market has now given you more of an opportunity than you may realize. So any of those types of things, I would say it's there. And lastly, if you see some type of service, whether it's competitors or you see something in another industry that seems parallel or seems like something you'd love to incorporate, you're like, I want that. Reach out. I mean, like the reality is that building capability comes from like, well, how do I be creative? How do I be innovative? How do I take what I'm doing today and what I have today, and how can I add more value?
And it can be especially helpful to have that third party perspective, somebody from the outside like yourself coming in and looking at your operation, because they will see things that you might not otherwise see in your current operation. And John, I know from experience working with you that you're a bright guy, you're easy to deal with, and somebody I would encourage anybody to reach out to John if they think that there's anything in their operation that resembles what he was talking about, because I expect he'll be able to help at least have that initial discussion, and then you can give them some specifics on
Yeah.
how your capabilities may fit their organization. So, John, we're at the point in the discussion where I give you the opportunity to ask me, a fractional CFO, any question, preferably about business, but I can field almost anything. Go ahead and let me know if there's anything that you'd like to know.
So, even when we were dealing, sort of dealing with each other in the past and sort of setting up that different type of project that we did, one thing that I've always had responsibility for, but I found a lot of organizations struggle with, is making that link between operational activity and finances, right? And the reality is, I've found that there's such a gap when it comes to the financial acumen within either an operations team or the operations team being able to accurately or properly share information with the finance team. How are you finding that these days? Like, are you finding that technology has helped improve that? Or do you find that people are maybe leaning too much on tools and technology and giving up some sort of business understanding and business acumen when it comes to these types of relationships in different parts of the business? Because realistically, the dollar rules them all. We all have to be profitable. There's no point on having a business that you make $1 but you spend $1.50 to make, if that's all you can do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in my experience with the businesses that we're working with, so small to mid-sized businesses, maybe between $1 million and $40 million in annual revenue, there is a disconnect. There's an absolute desire for the financials to look a specific way, and we
Hmm.
help clarify with our clients what those financials look like now, what they looked like in the past, different things we can do to make them look better. But it's always, aside from just understanding what the data is telling you, there's always at some point a shift where we say, now we need to look at the levers. What's causing this? There are many different things we can look at, but often there's something on the operations side. It can be business development related. It can be the efficiency of employees that are working in the business, delivering or um, performing the services or delivering the product or putting together the product, whatever that might be. There is a misunderstanding with respect to how much of a difference it can make on the finances if that's managed and coordinated with the finances. So we try to get our clients to look at what we call the leading indicators. So the key performance indicators on the operations side that directly affect the finances. And we try to tie it together for them so that we can say, hey, if you increase your efficiency over here by X amount, it's going to increase your profitability over here by Y amount. And when they can see that, when you can put together a forecast and show them how much of a difference that increased efficiency is going to make, it really redirects the attention and the allocation of resources and the way the business gets managed, so that a company will focus on the right levers to create those financial results. Because otherwise, there's so many different things you can potentially focus on, and they don't all have the same positive impact on the finances. Now,
Hmm.
I know you understand that very well, but a lot of people, even if they understand it, they don't have the time because there's just so much to look at in a business. If you're looking after the business, if you're the CEO or the director of operations or the vice president of sales, you've got a lot of things you're focusing on, and you really need that collaboration between sales and operations and finance. And if you've got that, then the business can fire on all cylinders. Then it can optimize the financial results. But as I say, small to mid-sized companies have a limited amount of resources, and to go out and hire
Hmm.
somebody of your caliber, for example, that's going to cost too much if they're doing it on a full-time basis, if they want somebody on site. So what they'll do is they'll hire somebody full-time who doesn't have the experience and the skills in the background, but then they won't get the results that they need. So
Hmm.
that's why I think fractional professionals like yourself and dare I say like us can come into a business and provide executive level expertise and capabilities that will get the results for a fraction of the cost of what a full-time person's going to be. And that's the difference. So I think that's a significant consideration for a lot of these companies. Many companies now, as they're building and scaling and looking to enhance profitability and the value of their business, they really need to look at using fractional professionals, because it's a more economic way of going about doing things, less of a commitment than when you hire a full-time employee. There's a lot of value in it. So even just reaching out to a fractional professional and saying, hey, this is my business. John, can you help me? Like, is there a benefit to me doing business with you? That discussion in itself will probably turn on a whole bunch of light bulbs. And I really highly recommend that people do that. And it's interesting, John, because we collaborate with a variety of different professionals, but we don't have a lot of collaboration partners who are on the operations side. And
Hmm.
so I think your business is maybe more rare, but just as valuable, if not more, because it's rare than a lot of the other people we collaborate with. But we do collaborate with tax accountants and lawyers and fractional marketing people and so on and so on. It's good to reacquaint myself with you, and I'm glad that we're connected on LinkedIn. And so I should probably at this point ask you, John, what's the best way for somebody to get a hold of you?
Yeah, there's multiple different ways, right? So on LinkedIn, see my name there for anyone looking at the screen, because it is a harder name, John McClymont, to try to guess. It's not John Smith, unfortunately. But that can also be an easy way to get to a website, to email me, johnmcclymont.me, right, which is super easy. Also, operationalinnovations.ca, which is my company. They'll both go to the same landing page at the moment. So LinkedIn, of course, or just John at Operational Innovations. Super easy to email, operationalinnovations.ca. Canadian. Ryan and I are Canadian, so there you go.
Although you do service clients in the US.
I do actually. I do more of my work outside of Canada than anything these days, just because of the market, and the attitude seems to be a lot more open towards benefiting from the type of work that we do outside of Canada. Canada, I find sometimes, is a little bit safer. So they haven't maybe embraced the fractional opportunities as much as some other places in the world. But I agree with what you said. It's a massive opportunity, and it's like, why would you not want to benefit from someone that's got 10, 15, 20, 25 years of experience? I mean, not really a problem for me, but I mean, most people don't like to go to that new hairdresser that just started cutting hair. They'd rather go to someone that's been around for a while, because you're going to get the results exactly to your point, right?
Yeah, absolutely. With low commitment, have the discussion for sure. Well,
Mm-hmm.
John, thanks for joining us on the podcast today.
Yeah,
This
thanks
is
for having me.
yeah, I've always liked chatting with you and had some fun today. So, John, I think we're done for now, but thanks again, and best wishes to you with the rest of the day and the rest of the week, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Awesome. You too. Thank you.